Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into something a little heavier. No dragons, no haunted submarines, just the quiet ache of being invisible in a room where you should have been honored. Imagine this. You're seated near the back of a candlelit wedding venue, the kind with floating flower arrangements and $15,000 in floral drama. Everyone's glowing, except you. You're not bitter exactly, just blinking a lot. Like, maybe something's in your eye. Like maybe decades of effort are starting to sting now that you realize they're being edited out of the highlight reel. You watch your stepdaughter glide past, arm in arm with the man who left when she still needed nightlights. He gets the father-daughter dance. You get a lukewarm salad and a folded program that doesn't list your name. Her toast? It thanks Dad for everything he's done, and you half expect to hear the universe chime in with a laugh track. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. Seriously, it's like an unofficial bedtime club around here. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit there, still, like some waxwork in a rented suit. Nobody notices the way your fingers tremble slightly as you lift the water glass. Historians still argue whether the silent endurance of overlooked step-parents has shaped modern family dynamics more than we realize. But tonight, you're not a data point. You're just tired. The music swells, the bride laughs, and for the first time in a long time you feel like a ghost at your own funeral. You stay seated, even when everyone stands to applaud the speech. Your hands rest in your lap, thumbs awkwardly circling each other like they're trying to console you. You don't clap. You don't need to. The man standing beside your stepdaughter already soaked up every decibel of praise, every camera flash, every wistful glance from aging aunts who still remember when he bailed for a yoga instructor in Arizona. You remember too. But let's rewind a little. You met her mother when your own marriage was already a crater. You weren't looking to be anyone's knight, just a decent guy with enough left in the tank to try again. Her daughter, 6 years old, clung to her mom's leg like a baby koala. Scared. Shy. Suspicious. You didn't push it. You brought her Legos and stories, made her pancakes with dinosaur-shaped cutters. Over time, she stopped flinching when you reached for the remote. Historians still argue whether step-parents in medieval households were seen as blessings or burdens. Evidence from Tudor England suggests they were often the scapegoats of family tension, blamed for everything from bad harvests to the milk going sour. But back then, nobody expected emotional intelligence. You had to learn it the hard way. She started calling you Dad in 3rd grade. Just once. You didn't mention it. You just beamed like a dork for a week. You helped her with science fairs, showed up at soccer games, taught her how to parallel park. Meanwhile, her biological father sent gift cards and grainy selfies from places like Cabo and Tulum. Now, years later, you sit in this folding chair like a potted plant, while that man gets the applause you didn't know you needed until you saw him receive it. When the music starts, it's the kind of soft, vintage acoustic track that wedding DJs pull out for the moment, the father-daughter dance. You already know what's coming, but still, it hits like a gut punch wrapped in tulle and fairy lights. She walks toward the center of the room, hand outstretched. Not to you, but to him. The man with the easy grin and the rented tux. The same guy who once forgot her birthday 3 years in a row but somehow remembered to bring a drone to her high school graduation. Your chest tightens, not from jealousy. No, jealousy would imply you expected something, but from that slow burn of betrayal that doesn't announce itself with fury, just quiet disbelief. As they sway under the string lights, you stare at the untouched champagne in front of you. Did you pay for that? Probably. You remember signing checks, clicking through vendor estimates, agreeing to overpriced candles because they matched the vision. You'd smiled through it all, convincing yourself it was worth it. Because she was worth it. It's not unlike ancient Rome, where adoptive fathers were often more invested than biological ones. Augustus himself was adopted by Julius Caesar and inherited the empire, but historians still argue whether that empire came with love or simply power. In your case, there's no empire. Just a dry chicken breast on a porcelain plate and the creeping sense that you were always the placeholder, never the parent. You want to get up and leave, but your legs have gone numb. Not physically, just emotionally. So you stay rooted while her head rests on his shoulder. You once taught her how to tie her shoes. Now you're invisible, and maybe you always were. The speeches begin, and you steel yourself. Maybe, just maybe, this is where she'll mention you. A passing thank you, a small nod, a moment that says, I see you. You brace for it like a soldier before the bugle call. She taps her champagne glass and rises, radiating the kind of poise that makes mothers cry and Pinterest boards swoon. Her voice is clear, lilting, filled with joy. She thanks her bridesmaids first, then her mother, then her new in-laws, each getting a sentence or two, then her father. Dad, you've always been there for me, she says, and you feel your stomach turn cold. You showed me what real love looks like. You blink slowly, like that'll change the reality you're hearing. The crowd claps. Her real dad beams. You sip the champagne now, bitter, metallic, and let it fizz out in your chest like a dying firework. Nothing. No, stepfather. No, thank you for raising me. Not even a dry mention wedged between florals and favors. The funny thing is, the ancient Egyptians believed in something called Ma'at, the cosmic balance of justice. If your heart was heavier than a feather after death, it'd get eaten by a demon crocodile. You wonder how hers would weigh right now. Scholars still debate whether this was meant as moral metaphor or an actual post-life judgment. Either way, the principle feels painfully absent here. You sit with the ache of being erased, not even a footnote, just a ghost in a suit. You wonder if anyone else noticed. Probably not. They're too busy smiling, tipsy on wine and nostalgia. You, on the other hand, are tipsy on nothing but years of unacknowledged love, and that's a buzz that burns. When the dancing begins, you hope for a reset. Maybe she was nervous during the speech. Maybe it was just an oversight. But then the DJ's voice floats out, syrupy and warm, announcing the father-daughter dance. A spotlight circles the room like a lazy vulture, and it lands not on you, but on him. Her biological father steps forward. He looks good in a tux. That's always been his thing. Looking good for short spurts. You used to envy it. Now it just seems empty. She reaches out and takes his hand. You watch her laugh, eyes crinkling the way they used to when she was little, and you'd sneak her an extra scoop of ice cream after dinner. Except now, the laugh isn't yours anymore. They sway gently, a slow song crooning something about forever love. The crowd eats it up like it's a Hallmark movie. You don't move. You're a statue. You feel the way Pompeii must have felt as ash rained down, frozen in the middle of normal life, suddenly ruined. Historians still argue whether ancient Rome fell from economic decline or moral collapse. Watching this unfold, you lean toward the moral side. There's something deeply wrong with how quickly people forget the ones who actually show up. Maybe that's the real decay. Forgetting. Did you know that in Victorian England, people used to take photos with their deceased relatives propped up to appear alive? They called it memento mori. Watching this moment, you feel like one of those relics, dressed for the part, propped up, but lifeless in meaning. You smile, faint and polite. Inside, something cool and hollow is forming, like the eye of a storm, and in that stillness, you begin to understand. This night is not the end. It's the spark. The applause dies down like a candle guttering in the wind, and people shuffle back to their seats or to the bar, where comfort can be ordered over ice. You stay rooted, stuck in your chair like it's bolted to the floor. No one notices. Or if they do, they look away fast, the way people glance past someone talking to themselves on the subway. The speeches start. The maid of honor is weepy and nostalgic. The best man, predictably, tells a joke that gets a few belly laughs and a few grimaces from the older folks. Then your stepdaughter stands up again. This is it, you think? Here's the moment. Surely, she thanks her mother first. Fair. Then her new husband. Expected. Then, and of course my father, my first protector, My hero. I wouldn't be here without you. She smiles straight at him. The room melts into an ovation. You don't even get a glance. Remember how archaeologists found ancient Egyptian receipts carved into clay tablets? Literal shopping lists from 4,000 years ago. Proof that even pharaohs had someone buying onions and goat's milk for dinner. That's you. You're the carved receipt, the invisible laborer behind the royal show. Your chest tightens in that slow, squeezing way that isn't dramatic enough for anyone to notice but hurts just the same. Historians still debate whether betrayal is a distinctly human flaw or a survival instinct wired into our DNA. Either way, it's always personal when it's you. You take a sip of your drink, which has long since turned to melted ice and watery regret. People are laughing again, clinking glasses, toasting a fairy tale. You think about how myths are just stories told by winners. And tonight, apparently, you lost. When the cake is cut, the cameras click like a firing squad. People gather around, angling for photos, icing on their fingers, laughter bubbling up like champagne. You're still seated, still quiet. A ghost at your own financial funeral. They serve you a slice of cake, vanilla with strawberry filling, her favorite since she was 12. You remember buying her a cupcake version every birthday for 5 years straight, even when she was too grown up to want them. She always ate them anyway, never thanked you. But she always ate them. Now she's floating through the room like a bride in a movie montage, thanking guests, hugging relatives, giggling with college friends. And then, like a scene timed by a director, she pivots and walks toward you. She's holding an envelope. Not a hug. Not a belated speech. Not a whispered, sorry. An envelope. She hands it to you with a smile that has all the warmth of a dentist's waiting room. This is for you, she says. You open it. It's the final invoice. Not a thank you note. Not a card. Just a neatly printed bill with all the wedding costs itemized. Photographer, catering, DJ, flowers. The total, 10,000 more than what you agreed to help with. Ancient Roman weddings often ended in a ceremonial handoff of the bride from her father to the groom, a literal gesture of trust, of letting go. Historians still argue whether the father felt honored or heartbroken. You don't need to argue. You know, you look at the bill, then at her. She blinks, maybe expecting you to laugh or reach for your checkbook. Instead, you stand, smooth your jacket, and walk out without a word. The air outside is thick with dusk and pollen, and something new. Resolution. You don't go home. Not yet. You drive with the windows down, letting the night slap some of the silence off your skin. Streetlights pass like slow camera flashes. No destination, just motion. You keep picturing that envelope, her smile, the way she didn't even flinch when you walked out. You wonder if she's telling the story right now, maybe to her new husband. He just left, she might say, half laughing. Like a child throwing a tantrum. Or maybe she won't say anything. Maybe you were never in her story to begin with. You pull into a diner. The kind with flickering neon and a waitress who's clearly too tired to care. You order coffee, black, and eggs you won't eat. You just need the ritual, the warmth of the cup between your hands. In ancient Mesopotamia, fathers were honored with clay tablets, praising their role in guiding children into adulthood. One tablet found near modern-day Iraq even contains a father's sarcastic complaint. My son listens to his mother's goat more than to me. Historians still argue whether that was meant as humor or heartbreak. You feel both. You check your phone, no missed calls, no texts. She didn't wonder where you went. Or maybe she knew. Maybe this was the final act of a play she'd been writing for years, and all you did was finally walk off stage. But something in you starts to shift. Something cold, methodical. Not bitterness, not quite. Strategy. You remember all the receipts, the canceled checks, the digital transfers. You remember she asked you to be the one to pay most vendors directly, because it was easier that way. You smile now. Not with joy, but with the slow satisfaction of a man realizing he still has a role to play. It won't be loud, but it will be final. You wake up the next morning with a clarity you didn't expect. No hangover of emotion, no replay of the dance you were never invited to, just stillness. The kind you get right before you make a move on a chessboard you've studied for years. First, you gather the paperwork. The contracts, the vendor emails, the spreadsheets you kept because you're the kind of guy who tracks things. Someone had to. You have proof of payments. You have bank transfers tagged with her name and little memos like venue deposit, photographer, and cake balance due. You open a folder and pull out the one thing she probably forgot you had, copies of the vendor agreements. Her name isn't on most of them. Yours is. Legally, you signed, you paid, you hold the contracts. In Roman law, the paterfamilias had immense authority, even over adult children. He could arrange marriages, manage property, and decide family fate. But there were limits. Even emperors had to accept when a son rejected their rule. Historians still argue whether that was a flaw in Roman justice or a subtle recognition that love, like law, has its breaking points. You make 3 phone calls. Calm, cordial, transactional. You explain there's been a mistake, and you're revoking payment authorizations. It's your name on the contracts after all. You're within your rights. And it's remarkable how helpful people are when you use phrases like pending legal review and potential fraud dispute. By noon, half the vendors have agreed to pause or reverse charges. One of them even offers condolences. You thank her. She doesn't know what she's consoling you for, but it still feels weirdly appropriate. You send no warning, no message. You leave the pieces where they'll fall on their own. After all, this time, you don't need an invitation to the show. The day of the wedding lingers like a shadow stretched too long across the room. You don't watch the ceremony on TV or scroll through photos. Instead, you sit back and let your mind wander, replaying every moment you spent in the background, the silent observer of a celebration where you felt invisible. You recall the way she never looked your way, the father-daughter dance with her real dad, the heartfelt speech that left you out like an unspoken ghost. It's curious how weddings have been both joyous and painful milestones through history. In Victorian England, for example, weddings were elaborate public affairs meant to solidify alliances and social standing, often overshadowing personal feelings. Yet historians still argue whether these grand ceremonies truly united families or deepened divides. In your case, the divide was as sharp as it gets. There's a peculiar comfort in the quiet aftermath, like the ancient practice of post-nuptial solitude, where newlyweds would retreat from all guests to find peace. You lean back in your chair, listening to the soft hum of the city outside, feeling a bittersweet mix of sorrow and resolve. You remember a quirky fact you read once about brides in medieval times wearing red for good luck, not white. Maybe if she'd worn red, she'd have been bold enough to face you. The bill, her parting gift, is still heavy in your mind. You can almost feel the weight of it in your hand. You don't resent it. Instead, it crystallizes something that's been settling for months. The end of a chapter you didn't get to write, but can finally close. Now, you're ready for what comes next, whatever that may be. After you stand and leave, the cool night air hits your face like a splash of reality. You walk without a plan, the city lights blurring into soft halos as your thoughts swirl. It's strange how endings often feel like beginnings wearing someone else's clothes. You think about all the small moments that led here. Quiet mornings with coffee cups, unspoken tensions at family dinners, the steady weight of disappointment growing heavier. Historically, the idea of stepping away to reclaim yourself has roots in ancient practices like the Roman concept of exilium, or voluntary exile, where leaving was a way to regain dignity and perspective. Historians still argue whether exile was punishment or privilege, a forced loss, or a chosen liberation. For you, walking away feels like liberation wrapped in grief. As you wander, a light drizzle begins, tapping softly on your jacket. Rain has always been a strange companion, sometimes cleansing, sometimes just cold and relentless. You recall a fringe tidbit from an old book. In some cultures, rain during a wedding is considered good luck, symbolizing fertility and renewal. You wonder if she ever believed in that, or if she was too busy playing her role. Your phone buzzes quietly, but you ignore it. Tonight isn't for conversations, just for listening. To the rain, to your breath, to the slow, steady pulse of your own heartbeat. Maybe this quiet moment is what you needed all along. The future is uncertain, but right now you are here, breathing, walking, and alive. You find a quiet bench under a flickering street lamp and sit, letting the world blur around you like an impressionist painting in motion. The city hums softly, distant laughter and the occasional car passing by, but mostly it's just the rain, the cool air, and your thoughts weaving tangled stories. You notice the smell of wet asphalt and the faint scent of blooming jasmine from a nearby garden. Small details that feel like tiny anchors in the swirling sea of emotions. There's a certain historical irony here. In Victorian England, rain was thought to symbolize cleansing and renewal, but also melancholy and reflection. Poets of the era often wrote about rain as a mirror to the soul's sorrows, a backdrop for unspoken grief. Historians still argue whether these rain metaphors shaped cultural attitudes or simply reflected them. Tonight, rain is both, an echo of your own bittersweet mood. You think about the dance she gave to her real dad, the smiles, the speeches, the glaring absence of any glance your way. It's a wound disguised as etiquette, a silent message etched into every step she took across that dance floor. And yet, you're not angry anymore. It's just deeply, achingly sad. There's a quiet dignity in your silence, like a book left unopened but still full of stories. Here's a quirky little fact. In some parts of the world, brides actually carry a small pebble in their shoe for luck. It's a physical reminder that life's journey can be a bit uncomfortable but also strong enough to endure. Maybe tonight, your discomfort is a pebble, a small but potent reminder that you're still standing, still walking your path, even if it's different from what you imagined. You breathe in slowly, letting the moment settle. Sometimes the hardest part is simply being present, allowing yourself to feel, to hurt, and then, maybe, to heal. The next morning, the silence at breakfast feels heavier than any words could be. The house, once full of the buzz and clatter of wedding preparations, is now eerily calm. You sit at the table, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, your mind replaying the night's events like a broken record stuck on the saddest song. There's a newspaper folded neatly nearby, an everyday relic that suddenly feels out of place in this quiet, aching moment. Did you know, newspapers in the 18th century were a luxury, often read aloud to groups as a communal experience? It's strange to think about how our relationship to news has evolved, from something shared and social to an almost solitary ritual, much like how your own connection with your stepdaughter has become distant and quiet. Historians still argue whether this shift in communication has made us more connected or more isolated. Tonight, it certainly feels like the latter. You glance around, spotting the empty chair that she once claimed so easily, the one where you used to share stories, plans, and dreams. Now it's just an empty space, a silent reminder of what was and what never quite was. The bill she handed you last night isn't just a piece of paper. It's a symbol of unspoken resentment, a way to balance debts beyond money. Here's a quirky detail. In medieval times, weddings sometimes involved a mock bill or receipt, where guests humorously charged the couple for services like dancing or singing. Yours feels less playful and more pointed, but the symbolism isn't lost on you. It's like she's trying to settle scores in her own quiet, calculated way. You set the cup down, feeling the weight of both bitterness and unexpected resolve. Sometimes, the hardest battles are the silent ones fought with calm dignity, and you're learning how to win without uttering a single word. Days pass, but the wound of that night doesn't fade. It just settles into the background like an old song stuck on repeat in your head. You go through the motions, pretending to be fine, but every familiar corner of the house whispers reminders of her absence, of the role you never quite got to play. It's strange how the heart can ache without tears, how silence can speak louder than any outburst. The tradition of the father-daughter dance dates back to Victorian England, where it symbolized the father's blessing and the handing over of his daughter to her new husband. You remember this history with a bitter twist, realizing your stepdaughter chose to honor a man who walked away years ago, leaving you the part no one applauded for, the silent guardian in the shadows. Historians still argue whether such rituals hold true emotional weight today, or if they're just nostalgic relics. Tonight, in your quiet house, it feels like a cruel joke. Here's a quirky fact. Some cultures don't have a father-daughter dance at weddings at all, focusing instead on community dances or symbolic acts involving elders. Makes you wonder how different your story might have been if traditions shifted the spotlight a bit differently. But traditions aside, what really stings is the unspoken message she sent, an invisible barrier built brick by brick over years of distance. You decide to channel that sting into something unexpected. Quiet revenge, not with shouting or drama, but with calm, relentless dignity. You'll build a life that no bill can measure, a life where your worth isn't up for debate or payment. And somewhere deep down, you know that's the kind of victory no wedding dance could ever give. You stand at the threshold, the night air cool against your skin, the weight of the unopened future pressing gently on your chest. Walking away wasn't just a refusal, it was a reclaiming. You left behind the bitter crumbs of a day meant to celebrate love but served only cold reminders. Outside, the world is vast and uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it holds promise, not pain. The custom of walking away, both literal and metaphorical, has long fascinated historians, often seen in ancient rites of passage where stepping away from the familiar marked transformation. You embody that, carrying a silent strength few recognize, a quiet defiance wrapped in soft shadows. There's a strange kind of freedom in turning your back, in refusing to participate in a story that wasn't truly yours. A curious note: some psychologists suggest that walking away, especially from toxic relationships or ungrateful ties, can trigger a healing process in the brain, releasing endorphins that ease emotional pain. It's like your body finally agrees with your decision, rewarding you for choosing peace over pain. Historians still debate whether vengeance born of silence is more powerful than open confrontation, but tonight, your silence feels like a roar. You don't need a stage, an audience, or applause, just the knowledge that you stayed true to yourself when it mattered most. As you step forward into the unknown, the past lingers like a fading melody, but it no longer defines you. The future waits with quiet patience, ready to be shaped by your steady hands, your quiet heart, and your unshakable will.